People in their 20s and early 30s have a lot of things to be thinking about, from buying a new car or house to saving for a wedding or a child's education. Often, retirement is an afterthought, and it's a big problem. Here to explain why retirement savings should be one of the #1 goals for a millennial is Michael Egan from Egan, Berger Weiner, LLC. Thank you for coming back and talking to the young people. Tell them why they should care about retirement, which seems so far away.
It really does. But let's start with why I'm doing this. So I have 2 millennials myself at home. I've got 2 daughters, aged 23 and 24, and these are discussions that we're having on a regular basis. I've got a lot of clients with 20-something children, and they're asking me to talk to them about setting things up. So I think it's an important topic just to get right first.
That's what you guys at Egan, Berger Weiner really talk about, is like to have the uncomfortable conversations early, so then when you're really faced with it, you already sort of have a baseline of a plan.
Absolutely.
So what should the priorities be for a millennial? Where should they be saving?
Okay, so #1, no credit card debt.
No,
so let's start with that. Sometimes it starts in college and then we got to dig out of the hole. But if we can start early, the #1 rule, as I'm sure all of the adults know, is if you charge it, you pay it off at the end of the month.
Right.
So I think it's good to build credit and use the card for that purpose, but definitely not carry any balances.
Okay.
The card isn't a right to buy, it's an obligation to pay.
Okay. I feel like you're at school, you'd be like, well, that I don't do, so I feel good about that. Okay. So what if we're good with financial things? Like if we're good and we're spend thrifty, what's our priority for going from there?
Oh, I think you should build a cash reserve pool.
Okay.
So I know for most young 20-somethings, even 30-somethings, the goal is to be financially independent, and I think that's fantastic. And as a parent of those children,
you don't want them
we
back.
want you off payroll.
Right.
And we want you to stay off payroll. So the best way to ensure that is to put some money in the bank before you leave home.
Okay.
So if that's possible, stay at home with mom and dad for an extra 6 months to a year. Bank the money, come out with a savings account. I usually recommend around, I just told my daughter Shannon this, so she's a nurse, she's working full time. She started working in February. I said, you got to put 10 grand in the bank before you leave.
Wow.
Now, she wants to leave quickly.
Right.
She's already got the money in the bank. So, the next step then is, what do I do? And, the goal is, do I live independently? Do I get roommates? And I'm always saying live below your means.
Right.
So that you've got extra money in the budget for more important things like saving for retirement and anything else that you may want to do for yourself.
Right. So sock away a little bit of money, or should you plan, like, I'm going to really plan on putting $200 away? Or do you say like $25 here, there, everywhere?
For the savings nest egg, you should put away every dime you can. If you're living at home rent-free with mom and dad, consider that rent payment. That's going to my nest egg. And then when I get up to the number, I'm recommending 10 grand. It could be a little lower, it could be a little higher, depending on your situation where you are. Then you can then start looking at the total bills. What can I do now? What can I afford? And this is my safety net in case something goes wrong, so I don't have to come home to mom and dad immediately or ask for a bailout immediately because I've built up this reserve. So
what about a savings rate? What should millennials and those young people be looking for?
So I think first we need to focus on what are we saving for.
Oh, okay.
So the saving priority should be...
And a new car is not...
No, that's not a big one. I mean, obviously we need transportation.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have to be brand new. We probably just came out of a phase, maybe with college, where we lived pretty meager lifestyles.
The ramen.
Yeah. We don't have to go that far, but ultimately, once we have the credit card deal there and we don't have any debt, we have our cash reserve built up, then I think the next step is retirement.
Okay.
At a minimum, we should be saving 10% for the retirement goal.
10% of
your gross.
Of your gross, okay.
So if you're making $40,000 a year, I think $4 grand should be going into the 401k during the year. Whatever you get from company match is a bonus on top of that. But realize that for you, for the 20-something, their retirement is pretty much going to be funded 100% by themselves.
Right.
Maybe with a little kicker from their employer, but not the way maybe their grandparents had it, where grandparents may have had a pension from the company.
Right.
They also had probably a pretty healthy...
Companies don't give you anything now.
No, they don't. Well, they don't want the ongoing liability.
Right.
They may give it to you, but they're giving it to you in the form of a match as opposed to a pension.
Any online resources that you recommend for people to jumpstart this savings?
I think, general financial education is always good. A lot of the websites from various investment companies have some good research on there. A lot of the big banks have some great research on there. It's just a matter of, finding a source that appeals to your particular need at that time.
Excellent. Thank you so much for making us save 10 grand a year. I feel like I'm going to
not save 10 grand a year, save 10% of gross.
10% of gross and 10 grand before you get out of your parents' house.
That's right.
10. Keep that in mind. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
More Let's Talk Live's coming up. Stick with us right here.